So I love economic games. I love strategy games. I love board games. I don't love smartphones so much. But here's a board game that we're going to look at today that combines all of those things. Today, I'm going to take a look at Smartphone Inc.
It's time for another Dice Tower review with Robert Geistlinger.
So here we're taking a look at Smartphone Inc. This is an economic game where players are going to be selling cell phones in the various areas of the world, and of course who at the game has the most points is the winner. The game itself is played over 5 rounds, with each round being made up of 8 phases. To make this simple, we'll just go through those 8 phases because that'll really give you an idea of how this game plays. The first phase is going to be this little data pad where each player is going to be setting their pad to a configuration that they want. Now the only rule is that you must cover at least 1 space, and you can cover a maximum of 4. You also have this little piece that's unique to your player, so we could maybe set it like this, and maybe we do this here, but this can be done however we wish it to be done. You just can't hang this off. Now, players also at the table will have these player screens that they can use if they wish to hide what they're doing. It's part of the game. We have found that we don't use them, but you may use them. After every player at the table has set their data pad, then we're going to move into adjusting our prices. Now on these boards there are 2 symbols. There's this symbol here that moves the money down and this one that moves it up. So if we ended, say, like this, then the blue player here would move down. Once all players simultaneously have done that, then we're going to collect our goods. Now this is the cool thing, is that they have these little trays here. And so you're going to look and determine based on these little crate symbols that you have and whether or not you've used this, because if you don't use this, it's worth a good. And you're going to count up what you're going to get. You're also going to get goods for any symbols you've covered up. Well, not symbols, spaces. So let's say that I did it like this, and I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and since I didn't use this, I'm going to collect 6. Now with that, I'm going to get to move 6 cubes from this area into here, which will become important later in the round. After all the players have collected their goods, then we're going to move into the technology phase. Now the technology phase is how we're going to acquire one of these sort of things here, and that's going to be determined first by players who have this symbol showing. And if they do have this showing and in turn order, which I should stop for a mention and mention how turn order. Turn order is going to be based over here, based upon going from the lowest amount of money that you're charging for your phones and then left to right based on where the players are on the victory point track. So if you were looking here right now, the blue player would go first, then green, black, yellow, red. But if black had went down, then it'd be blue, black, green, yellow, red. All right, so in turn order, we're going to determine this. And let's say I showed the symbol, I could take one of these. Now this will be useful to me in later rounds. If a player did not show this symbol here, then they simply take one of these, which is just good for a good. After this, we're going to move into the technology phase. Now this is where we're going to try to get various technologies that will help us out. This is going to be using these symbols on here. So let's say that I set up my board like this. I have 3 of those, so I get to take 3 of these little step things from my player container here, which I kind of think of them as steps towards finishing something, and I can place them in something. Now each of these have an ability, and they're double-sided, so you can have variability, but it has a value that needs to be done. So in this case, I've got the 3, which is the 3. So I get to place one of my buildings here. And since I'm the first player that does it, I get to take this patent, which is going to be worth points at the end of the game. It's also, though, going to lower the cost of that technology for other players. Now, as far as these technologies goes, there's various ones. This one here allows you to place a second headquarters out. This one makes technologies cheaper. This one here allows you to sell extra goods. This one allows you to get a good for each additional of this symbol here. So in this case, if I was set up like this, these would both actually count as collecting 2 goods. So you'll get various technologies through that. After we go through the technology, we move through what I like to call the logistics phase or the expansion phase, and that's going to be determined by the symbols that you have available. And you notice everything is matching symbols, and I really enjoy that. But so if you have 2 of these, then you're going to use those same step icons, and you're going to be able to expand out from places you already have headquarters. Now from here, I could move into North Africa, I could move into the USA, I can move into the RSA, but let's say I move into the RSA. Well, that one requires 2, and I'm placing 2, so I'd immediately get to place a headquarters. If on the other hand, I had 3, and maybe or 2, and I was moving up in the USA, then I would just leave those there for future purposes. Now, by default, you can only have 1 of these in a location unless you have the ability to launch a second one later. After this, we're going to move into the most important part of this and kind of the reason for the game, and that's going to be the selling of the phones themselves. This is again going to be in player order as everything is, and it's going to be based on those cubes that we moved over. So in this case, I have 6 goods to sell. So I'll move those out so I can show you. Now I'm only going to be able to sell anywhere that I have an actual headquarters set up, and I'm only going to be able to sell based on my maximum price. So in this case, I'm selling my phones for 3. These customers here will only buy phones 2 or less, so I can't sell to them, but I can sell to these. In addition, I could sell to this one. Now, if you start selling somewhere, you have to sell to the ones looking for phones before you start selling techs. But in this case, I have this Wi-Fi tech, which means I also could sell an additional good here. Now, I don't have any of these techs, so I wouldn't be able to sell. Any other cubes are going to be lost. Once all players have done that at the table, then we're going to move into the scoring phase. Now the scoring phase is relatively simple in this. You're going to get, for every phone that you sold out there, you're going to get your selling price. So I've sold 4 phones, I have 3, I'm going to get 12 points. In addition, there's going to be an area control going on here. So let's just say that yellow, let's place yellow here. And oh, that's not yellow's buildings. Let's say that yellow was also here, and yellow had sold a phone here, and let's say a phone here. Let's say they had the tech, and they were selling for 2. So this means now we're going to check for area control. Well, this is a tie, but ties are going to be broken based upon who is first in there. So blue would get it. So that means blue would get an additional 3 points. If on the other hand, this is how it had been set up, then this means that yellow would get the 3 points. Now, if red had also been in here, red didn't sell any phones, there's still a first and second. So yellow would get the 5 points and blue would get the 2 points. After this, we're going to do a quick cleanup on it. Players take their cubes back. These will be discarded from here and you put out new ones. You'll advance the round marker here. And then based on the points where everyone is, you'll reset everyone back to 5 in reverse order. So in this case, if this is how the points wrapped up, then green would be first, then black, then yellow, then red, and then finally blue, because blue has the most victory points. Complete that for 5 turns. At the end of it, whoever has the most points is the winner. So let's look at Smartphone Inc. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is the theme of this game did not do anything for me initially. When I first saw this game back at Essen this year, I was not interested in it at all. I just completely passed on this game. I was like, that looks completely boring to me. However, I couldn't be more wrong about that. I wish I had gotten this game. This is a wonderful economic game. And I couldn't help but, for some reason, I kept drawing these weird comparisons to Puerto Rico. Even so much, there's a technology in the game that allows you to sell things even if you don't have anywhere to sell them, that when I teach the game, I say this is like having your own ship in Puerto Rico. And I can draw some comparisons there. But you know what? For all the years that I've loved Puerto Rico, I think I love this game a lot more. This economic strategy game with smartphones is fantastic. And I especially like how I really can math this out, but there's not a lot of downtime in it. Players are doing a lot of their actions simultaneously during some of the phases, and others it is in turn order. But what's really interesting is this game can be really mean. you really do get this sense of these corporations building their empires out and selling these phones, and the way you move the price of your phones up and down, and the way you push into other players' markets. And that's where the really interesting thing for me gets in this game, is when I start pushing into an opponent's markets and sometimes strangling them out of their own market. Now, some players might go with the sell the phones really expensive, and they sell less phones, but they get more points for them. And some might go with the bargain basement, we're selling flip phone strategy. I tend to do a just slightly below average strategy myself, and so far I think I've only lost one game. These technologies are interesting in that they do allow players to really build out these advantages, and other players can get those same advantages, and I like the randomness of setting those up. Now, the one thing I wasn't as crazy about in this game is the solo play. I do like solo play, but for me, this one was okay. You're playing against an AI named Steve, and it just really didn't work for me, but I can see how others might enjoy it. Overall, I really do like this game a lot. I really like this game when you're playing it at full 5 players. However, it does scale well down. I didn't show it in the overview, but in the lower player counts, you do cover up some of those areas with retailers who basically you now can't sell your own phones. It gives you some extra victory points at the end. It can give you some instant bonuses. But really, this is a wonderful economic game. And honestly, despite the fact I wasn't drawn in by the theme, I think this looks beautiful on the table. All the components are well done, and it's just a marvel. This is probably going to get one of my highest scores ever I've given to a game, and that I'm going to give it a 9.5 rating. So if smartphone interests you, go ahead and check the game out. I know it's a little hard to get at the moment. I do hear that there are new versions coming of it soon. I don't know when, but I do know it's coming eventually. And I hope this game, this overview and review, has helped you decide if this might be a game you're interested in, and I look forward to seeing you folks next time.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.